Hi, I'm Terry and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to finish up my series of capability tests of the 14th century medieval styled 60 caliber handgun, and that is accuracy. But before I get into that, first, I do not encourage, advocate, or recommend that anybody experiment with homemade firearms. This video is for educational, entertainment, and informational purposes only. Experimenting with firearms can be very dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. You could get yourself seriously hurt or killed, or worse than that, you could seriously injure or kill somebody else. So don't do it, okay? Watch the video, enjoy it, and let it go at that. Okay, having said that, I've got a very simple test set up here. As you can see, way back yonder, I've got a target set up against a sheet of plywood. That's about 50 feet away. And I'm going to fire 3 rounds, aiming, of course, toward the center as best that I can. And we'll see if I even hit the target. See if I even hit the plywood. So, let me get my ears and glasses on, and we'll get started. Okay, the accuracy factor is a lot better than you might think. We had 1 hit in the bullseye, and then 2, so we actually have a pretty good grouping here for a smooth bore short barreled firearm with no sights and no shoulder stock or any decent way to aim it. Pretty good at 50 feet. I'm thinking, of course, you know, as you get farther back it's going to spread out. I'm not able to do that test right now, but later in the year, if I can get to the firing range, I'm going to set it up for some longer distances and we'll see what we get. Obviously we're going to spread out the farther we go, but how far back can we go and still reliably hit the target? Looking at the other side, you can see we did some pretty good damage here. Just blew right through that plywood. So none of them even embedded in the plywood. This is 1/2 inch thick plywood and exterior grade. And it just blew right through it. So I'm going to finish this up with one more shot, doing a point of view shoot, and we'll go back inside and do a quick follow-up. Hi, I'm back. I was going to do a follow-up evaluation of this testing inside in the air conditioning where it's a little more comfortable, but my wife's got something going on up there. It's a bit on the noisy side, so thought I'd just stay out here and do it. So, what can we say in conclusion about 14th century medieval handguns? Well, first, I want to come back to this accuracy test that I did one more time. This, of course, is my 4th shot, that bad guy point of view shot. And I know for a fact that I flinched when this thing went off, so this one's on me. This is not in the gun itself. And actually, I believe these two really have more to do with me than the gun as well. First shot in the bullseye, second shot, third shot. Again, trying to hold, especially on this third shot as steady as possible. But that's not bad for 50 feet for defensive grouping for a smooth bore 14-inch barrel gun with a piece of cannon fuse burning right in front of your face and no sights. So, not bad at all under the circumstances. So what can we say about these? Well, I think in a nutshell, we tend to think of 14th century technology as being very primitive compared to today. And in a lot of ways it really is, in most ways probably. But with the firearms especially, we have a tendency to think of them as being very underpowered, ineffective, inaccurate, more like nuisance weapons on the battlefield, where all the smoke and the sparks and the flame causes confusion and fear, but doesn't really hurt anybody. But on the contrary, what I'm seeing from my testing is that these things were actually surprisingly powerful, capable, and accurate, meaning deadly, weapons. These were not something to be taken lightly. And unlike a longbow, which can take years and years of training to get any good at, and even a crossbow, which could take a week or two to learn to use, not to mention several weeks to make one, the local blacksmith could hammer one of these out in a day, and we could spend an afternoon teaching some peasant out of the field how to use it the next day and put him into battle, and he can kill people with this. So, not bad at all. Well, that wraps up my little capability testing of my modern facsimile of a 14th century handgun. Oh, one more thing. At the end of my proof of concept test, I asked a question. This thing really should have exploded when I fired it. And remember, it's not bamboo. This is steel pipe, or this is actually a coupling, and there's a pipe down through here, and then another coupling. Let me show you what I mean by that. This is the same construction, it's just got a shorter barrel. Same construction, just a shorter barrel to make it easier to get into the frame here. This is the plug slash powder chamber, combustion chamber. You can see it's hollow. And the hole was drilled here in the back end here, down into that hollow chamber. So it has what's called a constricted powder chamber. And then, of course, this helps reinforce breech. And then we had a reinforced muzzle. Well, first of all, this is really low quality pipe, okay? Yes, it's steel, but it's not high quality spring steel that you would use to make a gun with, and it's not rated for the kind of pressures that a firearm is going to be subjected to. This thing is water pipe, and it's rated for 100 pounds, maybe-ish, maximum safe load. When this thing fires, it's subjected to several thousand pounds per square inch of pressure, way outside of its rated pressure range. Why didn't it explode? Well, under slightly different conditions, it would have. There's actually several variables at work here which made this work instead of blow up. So here's what was going on in here. We have several variables involved in it that all have to work together or this thing would explode. Now the critical variable is time. Time is determined by several factors, and that is barrel length, pressure curve. Pressure curve is essentially when the propellant is ignited, how quickly it burns, or the rate of combustion increases if it does at all, and how quickly the gas pressure builds up, reaching maximum pressure, and then reduces. It's called a pressure curve. With, say, modern smokeless powder, example, it has a very steep pressure curve right at the beginning. It burns fast, right at front, fast, and then it drops a little more slowly than, say, an internal combustion engine. But what that means is it's reaching maximum pressure very quickly in here. When you have the powder in here and you have the projectile, lead ball, say, pressed in against that, with modern smokeless powder and you ignite it, that pressure builds up, man, fast, before that ball has a chance to move very far away. So you've got a lot of pressure in a small area, being pushed against a very small surface area. And that could cause this to rupture. That's the problem with using modern smokeless powder in firearms rated for black powder. There is no safe conversion model to use. The same amount of smokeless powder that will produce the same muzzle velocity as a certain amount of black powder will cause this to explode. Different pressure curve. Black powder burns a little more slowly up front and then accelerates toward the end. That's the key element here. As the gas builds and it start pushing the ball down the barrel, in effect, the combustion chamber itself gets bigger. The pressure, which is accelerating itself, the rate of increase is increasing, is being subjected to a larger surface area. It's being spread out over a larger surface area. And the ball is not moving down the barrel at a steady rate. It is actually accelerating down the barrel. When the ball reaches the muzzle, the entire gun is subjected to maximum pressure. The ball exits the muzzle, the pressure instantly dissipates. Time. This pipe can actually survive pressures much, much greater than its safety rating, but only for very short periods of time, like a few milliseconds. The time that it takes for the ball to get down this barrel and out. Now granted, the barrel in the handgun was a little bit longer, about like this. But still, that's not much. We're talking about a couple of milliseconds, but that's all it needs for this thing to either work or fail. Just a few milliseconds either way. If this barrel had been any significantly longer, right, this end of it especially very easily could have exploded, or at least ruptured, even with black powder. Time is determined by barrel length, pressure curve from the type of propellant, and the amount of propellant. And even then, if the barrel length is right, the amount of propellant with black powder doesn't really matter, because any unburned powder, by the time the projectile reaches the muzzle, simply blows out the end of the muzzle. So you can really go shorter and not have a problem, but you can't go much longer and not have a problem. Thank you for watching my little series of videos on my capability testing. Coming up next, I'm going to move a little bit closer in time into the 19th, maybe even into the 20th and 21st centuries, possibly. Homemade percussion caps. Can you make your own percussion caps at home? Yes. Question is, do you really want to? Stick around and find out.